Another stream of Palinurus. Whew. Let's see if I can even do this. Who messaged me in Discord? Alright, it's just a simple message on Discord. Alright, let's get back into this. Loading back in from where I saved last time. I know I started skipping a few things. Okay, this is a passenger. You got us out of that tight spot. I know I would, and I know you could do it again. Uh, you've you've years of experience doing this. You know the system better than the back of your hand. Although I guess this is kind of like the back of your hand. Budapest giggled. It sounded warmer this time. Her hands lowered, her fingers snaked through her long red hair. It was the first time I'd seen her genuinely smile. It was a nice sight to see. I believe in you and what you're capable of, and as long as we're stuck in this drifting hunk of metal, you've still got a job to do, just like I have business to do once I get home. Understand? Dot dot dot. She nodded. I understand. This may well be my very last voyage as a pilot uh, for Titan Transportation Solutions. Oh, shit. Dang it, I skipped. Sorry, didn't mean to do that. Is there any way that I can go? Nope, no way I can go back. Fudge. She bowed gracefully and motion. The motion was practiced, but the beaming smile on her face betrayed her new enthusiasm. Um, you have my word. I couldn't help but smile, and also I couldn't help but tease her. Tell you what, if you if they won't take you back and try to scuttle the ship, I'll take you off their hands. I'm thinking I'll download and install you on my phone. Eh, a phone? But that would be so cramped. And this cockpit isn't? Budapest laughed enthusiastically, relishing the absurd notion. That's a novel way for a program to act. Suddenly embarrassed, she tried her hardest to shut herself up. She couldn't suppress the giggling. I I told you I'm not just a program anymore. Yeah, just wait. It gets better. Does that mean it's no longer against regulation to tease you then? She pouted and went back to work. I snickered, satisfied to myself. The cockpit fell into silence aside from the muted hums and clicks emanating from the countless computer systems. Budapest seemed to be much more confident now. Her eyes flickered with profound readiness. She was no longer uh, practicing a clinical, pre-programmed routine. She had become genuine. Maybe this was the real her, after all. I'd have liked to think so. I thought back to the limitation chip. Why would they create a device like that? sounded sounded so awful to me. This genuine creature sitting only a few feet away from me represented the pinnacle of human innovation. They hadn't just created a new life, they created life which mirrored their own humanity. Life that could think for itself, feel the entire spectrum of emotions, live for itself and others. Tell me, installing those chips, it was like taking a sledgehammer to the mirror of humanity we created. It felt awful, the worst. I hadn't really thought about it much up to this point, but then I could feel the outrage welling up within me. I stole a glance at her, working enthusiastically at her display. Working. Okay. Working enthusiastically at her display. It seemed that as soon as our conversation died out, she returned to the world of code, looking for something. So, what are you up to now? I'm scanning the ship's database as well as running a nearby radar scan for any nearby vessels or perhaps a notable landmark. She frowned. Turns out my suspicions were correct. There's no data published on this stretch of space. It's remote, unexplored, and I can't detect a single sign of life within the shuttle's range.
Get an education.
Hey! Yeah, I'm streaming right now.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
I'm in your stream, dickhead.
oh shit, I didn't realize. Her heart sank. Do you mean I couldn't help but feel the dread spread out around me? We were stranded. We are in dead space, yes. Ew, no. Actually, wait. According to this data here, with her index finger and her thumb, Budapest quickly expanded one of the small rectangles on the interface, hovering it in front of her. It enlarged in an instant, its width stretched from her side of the cockpit to mine. It seemed to be a grainy black and white photograph of some small space station. We Budapest paused for a moment, double checking her data. I thought she was doing. We're on due course to pass by a research outpost. According to the registry data, it is owned and operated by the Arcadian Empire's government. You think it's military? It likely is. The Empire's been interested in exploring the further reaches of known space, and it seems to be a hub for activity in the region. While our communication systems are too damaged to send a distress beacon of sufficient frequency, we're drifting right in their direction. Once we get close enough, they should detect us themselves and send someone to investigate. That sounds great. How far away are they? Her eyes lowered for a moment to study her documents. Approximately 30 days. 30 days at our current trajectory and pace. Oof, that was a long trip and probably a longer trip back. Really? Seth, shut up. Well, we could just put me in cryostasis and have you wake me up once we get there. I'll It'll be a while anyway. Most, if not all, long-range spacefaring vessels have a cryostasis technology built into them. They were pretty much necessary for long journeys. Each ship contained in its hold the necessary chemical and mechanic machinery, my bad, needed for cryogenic sleep processes. When installed and activated, the cryogenic sleep system would send all craft's carbon-based life forms into a sort of trance-induced coma, while the personal navigator would typically take over from there. Certain insulatory chemicals slowed down your biological processes to a glacial pace. Gosh, I can't speak. To your body, a 3 month long trip would be over in 10 seconds. It was incredible technology. Sure, it would be a good goddamned long time to reach Alpha Centauri, but I'd be asleep for most of it and it'd be over in a flash. Budapest was silent. She was biting her lip. My thin smile eroded away. What is it? Is the cryostasis system out too? Dot dot dot. Yes, we've been destroyed. They've been destroyed beyond repair. I see. I sank down in my seat, allowing the realization to seep in. It's alright. I'll just wait it out. Um, if I was willing to give up God knows how much time to transit to Alpha Centauri, it's not that this is going to phase me much. I don't have a family to get back home to, or anything like that. Are you sure you're alright with that, sir? You'll remain conscious throughout
Isn't
the
that this whole game? You're
voyage.
gonna just sit there and read?
Yeah.
Damn. Well,
Yeah,
if
I've
you want to
already
learn how to
done.
read, why don't you just go back to school?
Oh, it's not that. I played this game a long time ago. It just hits fairly close to home. I figured showing emotions might be a good idea to play through. I've already played an hour of it and put it up on stream.
Huh?
So, uh, um, well, I'll be
Oh,
back
you're
once the
good, buddy.
stream's over. Um,
Do do what?
I'll be back once the stream's over. Sorry about that. I wasn't expecting him to actually jump in. I know he can probably still hear me. He's got the stream up. Sure, it'll be fine. Don't worry about me. She was acting all of a sudden nervous. I think my mention of cryostasis must have struck a nerve or something like that. What was the deal? She must have handled trips like these by her lonesome all the time. Can I ask you a question? Huh? That caught me off guard, but sure. What do you need? Sorry, I was just thinking, and her head turned to gaze out the windshield again. She clenched her hands against her bare, pale skinned shoulder and looked toward the stars. I was looking out at the stars, and I didn't realize how empty it was out there. Before, I could make a voyage easily, but even on the flights where my passenger was in stasis, I could wait it out. without a second thought, without a single doubt, but now I. She turned her head to me, her voice was low, and it rippled with apprehension. Apprehension. My mind, it wanders so much now, and I wouldn't want to be left on my to my own thoughts. And I look out there and I think of how lonely it must be to float through space like this, and I couldn't quite follow what she was saying. She was going too fast. She must have caught on that fact herself. She took a deep breath, her chest expanded and retracted. Can we. Is it alright if we talk while we're on our way to the military installation? We could. Would you be alright with that? I wouldn't want to be left by myself for so long. I don't think I'd be able to handle it. Not this time. Part of me wonders. Now, how I ever did it before. She scoffed softly as if she's just made a joke. It wasn't a funny one. If anything, she sounded dreadfully sad. I stared back at her for a moment and sighed. Well, of course we can talk. I wouldn't just force you to shut yourself off or anything like that. What kind of bastard do you take me for? You saved my life after all, didn't you? I'll just sit here and talk to you all the way through. I owe you that much. Suddenly Budapest sprang up like a supernova. It appeared I'd made her day. I chuckled at her. I can read you a little on open book. You know that? She blushed. Her frame became more transparent when she blushed. Huh. Look, it's not like I have much of a choice anyway, right? The cryostasis system is offline, so what else could I do? Just sit there whistling for a month, pretending like you're not there, watching every move. I I I respect the privacy of my passengers. You but you've got to get us out of this mess, all right? I'm no pushover, but I still don't find being stranded in dead space to be particularly fun. All right? I'm counting on you. Uh, of course, sir. I'll try my best. You have my word. Truthfully, there was a little choice between either of us. There was little choice between either of us. And besides, I didn't think I'd have been able to rest easily in cryo sleep anyway, knowing I'd be leaving this miserable creature to her own devices the whole time. Time to get comfortable, I suppose. I sighed, stretched out, and turned my head to the stars. Budapest turned to look at me, too. This was going to be a long trip. Okay, I'll be right back. I gotta use the restroom. I'm back. Sorry about that. And I need to fix that so it's not showing those overlays. This was going to be a long trip. And so like that, some time passed with Budapest and I becoming accustomed to spending our days drifting slowly through space. I took a while to get used to. It took a while to get used to, but eventually, aided by the tranquility of space and its ocean of stars, we were able to find a small measure of peace. The jettisoning of the cockpit was a stressful time for both of us between the screaming, the close scrape with untimely death, made for some awkward first impressions. So for much of the time, I just felt tired. I was sleeping, having nodded off in the cockpit co-pilot's chair when the time is now 1200 hours. Hmm? I stirred in my seat. At least knew what time it was. Budapest must have been programmed to make a periodic announcement such as these. Oh, Mr. Sir, that was a lot of titles? Hmm. Yeah, I'm up. What? I did re I did a real job for contouring myself to my seat, contouring myself in my seat, unknow un unnoting my pretzel legs, unknotting my pretzel legs. I peeled myself from my seat, extended my arms toward the ceiling, and stretched to get all the kinks out of my back. Drowsily, I looked ahead at the stars drifting out in the cosmos across the black expanse. You didn't wake me up just to stargaze, did you? There are enough of those out there to at least to last us a whole trip. No, well, you were snoring. I wanted to check up on you. What kind of cause and effect relationship is that? Also, I don't snore. I beg to differ, sir. I was just concerned because, well, perhaps you have allergies or I don't have any allergies also. While while we're on the matter, I don't snore. dot dot dot. What? 1 second. Budapest turned to her display to what was she bringing up? What? That wasn't me. This was the sound of some sort of suffocating animal superimposed on grainy footage of me sleeping. When did she even capture it anyway? How did she capture it? Why did she capture it? I spun in my seat towards one of Budapest's cameras and glared right into it. She giggled at the expression of anger on my face. See, we should get to we should get you on more of a regular sleep cycle. It's hard for my it's bad for my heart and it could lead to hypertension. Bad for your heart and it could lead to hypertension. Yeah, because I'm tense enough as it is. I sighed, getting settled into my chair. I always give your you always give your passengers this much trouble? Not everyone can get 9 square hours of sleep at night. Uh, well, not really, given the circumstances, though. You could bear to make an exception for me. Exception, for once. It's not like you who have much of an excuse not to, right? Really? Really, you're gonna go there? She had a point. Still, I wasn't ready to concede, not yet. Well, you're an artificial intelligence, right? Can't you just, like, turn off your audio receptors or something? Don't think it'd bother you then. I could. Kind of creepy to record all that. In any case, not gonna lie. I thought you said you didn't watch me sleep. I, I, I don't? Not at all. It's for security? Security reasons. I can't change that. It'd be a breach of protocol. She was insistent on the point. I didn't know artificial intelligence could blush. She was getting so embarrassed, squirmy, so visibly flustered, I laughed in her face. Shit. All right, fine, I get it. I'll try to get some more sleep. That seemed to satisfy her. A small, warm smile crept across her face. So what have you been up to then? I'd hope you've been doing more than watching me sleep. V very funny, actually. Well, I've been combing through our database registries. It's funny. They've always been here, but I hadn't really ever engaged with them in the past. Databases. Yes, they're standard in all outgoing Titan transportation systems. Trillions of archived documents stored electronically inside the holographic layers of each vessel. The database is intended for purposes of extraterrestrial ambassadorship, I guess. It's a complication of digitally compilation. Gosh dang it, I can't speak. Compilation of digitally reserved artifacts dating back to the times of old Earth. Huh. They go that far back? Do they? Hard to believe that every dingy little spaceship like this one carries the full extent of humanity's cultural footprint. It's a wonder they managed to fit it all in. It's a little romantic, don't you think? What? Like, candlelight dinner romantic? No, no, no. Nothing like that. Like, I'd, idyllic. I don't quite follow. It's incredible they fit so much together and all, but it's like, well, you know when mankind first landed on the moon, orbiting old Earth? Of course, it's a galactic civil holiday. Built to built a museum over their footprints. It's hard to think to it's hard to think gosh, it's a hard thing not to learn about. Gosh, I can't freaking speak. Bleh. She nodded. Of course, and the lunar plague that's preserved there too. Her men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon July 1969 AD. We came in peace of all mankind. It was a message from the visitors from abroad, first even when man first broke through the skies to the stars, they looked beyond the veil to find others like them. Budapest placed her hand on the console, silently, delicately patting it. She looked down and examined her palm. daintily fingers as she spoke on. And even today we carry their dream with us along with their memories. Their dream of meeting travelers like us just from the different walk of the world. I think that's really incredible. That's the sort of romantic I was thinking about. Okay. Dreamy look in her eyes was dissonant? Dissonant? I don't know how to pronounce that word. She stared out the front of the cockpit. How long had she been? Oh gosh, dang it, I skipped. My bad. It didn't help that I was buying into her wishful prose a little myself. It was whimsical and saccharine? Saccharin? Or whatever the heck that is. I still can't pronounce that word after all these years. But I couldn't think of a better public transit reason a public transit fleet for commuters would be outfitted with all known human knowledge. I'd open my mouth to respond and try to shoot her down, but I honestly couldn't. I didn't have a better idea, and well, I'd not have been able to live with myself. Kind of lousy to trample on the imagination of a naive, innocent girl, artificial intelligence or otherwise. I turned my gaze to the stars out in front of me, opting to change the subject. I don't suppose you've met any strange, distant travelers yourself flying about the outer space? Who? Other than you? Budapest giggled warmly. I rolled my eyes a little. Sadly, no, but there are maybe 50 million spacefaring vessels from Titan Transport alone currently making their rounds across the mapped space. If any travelers encountered one of us, I'm sure they'd be well met with a generous gift. I wouldn't terribly mind if one of those millions swung by to pick us up too. Hmm. That was a sadder, smaller laugh than I would have liked to hear. So we've the sum of all human knowledge at our fingertips. What do we do with it? She had a starry look in her eyes. Have you ever taken a look at them yourself before this? The databases? No, actually, reading through them was never part of my duties. The suited that suited me fine. There was always enough for me to do to ensure the safety of the safety and pleasant voyage. The straight-laced answer, as expected. That wasn't expected, though, was the way her eyes focused hungrily, lustfully at the console. But now that you mention it, I'm awfully curious to have a peek inside, aren't you? Hmm. We've got a month to kill. No objections here, I suppose. Oh, come on. Smile a little. This could be fun. Aren't you excited? I guess I could be a little more excited to take a gander at the dusty old records of a bunch of dead folk. Hmm. Actually, I was a lot more interested than I was letting on, but seeing her pout like that was a treat. I let out a chuckle as she peeked angrily away at the display. I leaned over to get a better look at what she was up to. It was a digital interface, an encyclopedia search engine, remarkable modern stuff. So, what you looking at first? Wouldn't you like to know? Oh god, evil little... Okay, actually I would. Budapest snickered. Heh, hold on one sec. And it took a second for the display to refresh, and then there it was. Budapest, Hungary, in the Central Europe back in old situated in Central Europe back on old Earth. They said it was one of the most beautiful cities on the continent. Huh. Hmm. Didn't take you for an actual child. Some of all human knowledge at your fingertips, and you look up your own name. Narcissism? Is is it? Stop bullying me. I chuckled again. It was fun to get on her case about it. Shaking her head, she focused her attention. Budapest was a union of three cities. The two cities of Buda and Obuda were on the highly western side of the Danube River. A city of Past on the flat's eastern side. The city of Pest on the flat eastern side. They were connected via bridges and oh my, what is it? I caught a look at what she was reacting to. It was a sprawling series of buildings with spires extending up and above the rest of the city. It was imposing and yet oddly regal and cultural at the same time. I squinted to read the caption beneath it. Budapest uh, Parliament Building. It was grounds extended across 18,000 square meters. What? 40 kilos of gold. They decorated the rooms with gold. I didn't think you'd be able to find any left over, though. Nah, guess not. Damn. According to this, Budapest was remarkably artistic and cultured. Oh, look at this. She brought up an image of another building, an opera house. The caption said it already looked ancient by the time the photograph was taken. Odds were that it was nothing but dust in this day and age. I grimaced. Ain't that something? Oh, look at this. Oh, what's this? It says here the namesake come from Slavic words. Buddha was for water, pest was for oven. I glanced over to her. She didn't seem to get it either. I guess it wouldn't fit you perfectly, wouldn't it? Huh, I beg your pardon? Are you saying I look like water? Like a water oven? No, that's no. Gosh, I can't even. Yeah. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, water and fire. Like, there's a clarity to what you say and what you do. And you've this, like, pure innocent about you since, well, but at the same time, you're also warm and passionate. And you get excited easily as if there's a spark or something in your eyes. Like you've got both water and fire within you. You've got a lot of faces, is what I'm saying. Sorry. I'm just rambling at this point. Hmm. I was a stupid. It was a stupid analogy, so. No, it's alright. I didn't know you could be such a sweet talker. Hey, really, I just felt like being a little poetic. She'd really taken to that comparison. I'm not sure why exactly. She was programmed to have a blushing animation, but I wasn't opposed. It was nice to see from her calming, even warm. Passenger, sir? Yeah, what is it? I felt like, well, we're talking about my name and, huh? She was actually awfully strange now, fidgeting with herself. A, After a brief and awkward moment, she chuckled a little too loudly, perhaps in a poorly veiled attempt to dissipate the tension. Never mind about that. It's a frivolous thought. What I was wondering was if, would you like to read you, would you like me to read you any interesting passages in the databanks? It'd make for good in-flight entertainment, and that's another responsibility of a good stewardess. Uh, at least in this case, it would. It it would. She approached this proposal with such vigor only to stumble near the end. I waved my hand. I knew this was less about me and more about letting her sate her own curiosity, so I think I'd be up for that. Maybe less on the articular uh, art architecture, though. It's depressing to think everything in those photos is probably dust or in ruins now. Noted. Yes, your request is duly received. And right then, and there, Budapest and I had something of a contract. This was a way of getting through the day, and it wasn't necessarily a depressing one. What I was counting on was how much sheer data she'd flip through in a single day. She didn't stop at Hungary. She didn't stop at Hungary or whatever. We ended up taking a whirlwind tour through the rest of mainland Europe. Shit, I can't speak. Berlin, Bucharest, Vienna, Florence, Bruges. The list went on and on. She was feverish, insatiable in her search for knowledge. It was a information overload. Damn it. She was enamored by a cookbook now. Parisian cuisine. Ooh. Ah, maybe we can try making French crepes with the replicator. Passenger, sir. Yeah, I'm good. Oh. Or Castilian pellet. Pele. Really, it's Atlantic cod? I am going to shut my eyes for a bit. I'm a little tired now. Tired and, well, you wanted me to get more sleep, didn't you? At least you won't be watching me sleep anymore, and now you have something to do. Ro ro Roger that, sir. Sleep well. And so I closed my eyes and rubbed against the fabric of the co-pilot's seat. I tried my hardest to get to sleep. It was all I could do to block out the excited chattering. I had no idea what I'd wake up to later, but hopefully it'd all clear up in the morning whenever that would come. Ooh, bright light. Time is 1200 hours. Ah, that time again, huh? If nothing else, Budapest was punctual. Yeah, I made to undo my pretzel body from a heap of limbs, rising slowly to the day. My hair was a mess, matted down In awkward places, I rustled it back in somewhat presentable shape. I'd rather have woke up to the morning sun than the sight of stars. It didn't feel natural to live and sleep like this, but small sacrifice to make in space travel. I suppose I've gotten used to it. Good morning, sir. Yeah, lovely morning. I responded drearily to Budapest's sunny little greeting, re readjusting, red justing, readjusting, I guess is what they were trying to say, my position in the co-pilot seat. If you need breakfast or uh, our in-flight replicator would surely assist you. Ah, the replicator. I'd always been wary about the replicators. They sounded great on paper, being able to make any kind of food you need at any time, but in execution they left something to be desired. I glanced over the control panel in front of me, stored just beneath the enormous control deck, a smaller console attached to what looked like an ancient microwave oven kept to itself. Weird place to keep a replicator. I would suppose it was the human pilot's responsibility to provide for their own meals on a flight. I punched in some numbers. What was it? 2424? The machine hummed and then filled with a bright white light. I opened the door, and once the steam faded away, I saw a small paper cup standing in the center of the contraption. I took a look at the cup's contents. Looked like coffee. I took a sip and then gagged. Ach, I sighed. It was lukewarm, too. Budapest glanced at me with a frown. Ah, you see, this make of transit shuttle doesn't exactly have the highest budget replicator. Eh, well, of course, caffeine's caffeine, I suppose. I gulped down the foul, infernal black concoction and then crushed the cup in my hand. It seemed to give way too easily, almost as if tissue paper could crack. Well, that was a nice little jolt of energy. Oh, musics, archive list, filters, literature, non-fiction, fiction, and music. What are our plans for today? More aimless drifting through the endless vacuum of space, I'm guessing? I was up for some uh, metering through the empty void myself. Mix it up a little, keep it fresh. Heh, actually, I was studying the database again while you were resting. I see, you're still infatuated with them. How goes the hunt for knowledge? Ah, you see, that's the thing. As soon as I see a document, I just go for it. Like here. See? Amelia. Huh. She briefly brought up some information on. It looked like a drawing of a human girl. It seemed to be listed with all kinds of information, interesting hobbies, classes. Before I could read into it too much, she swiped at the display elegantly. The girl disappeared. I think I've had an easier time of getting through material, at least generally. Well, it's all data and junk, right? You'd process that sort of stuff quickly, I'd assume. It's different now. I mean, sure, I can read 500,000 words in a minute at 100% comprehension, but it's not really getting it like that. It's not really getting it like that, you know. I've tapped into some archives and fiction novels published in North America. I've been having a lot of fun reading these stories. Literature is really a new discovery for me. I've been so used to having instructions spelled out to me in precise terms, but these authors manage to communicate so much with so few words. I've had to sit back and think about what they really mean, what they really meant. They didn't, hey, didn't you know they had book clubs for this sort of thing? I wonder if they'd let me host one when we get back. Admittedly, there was a cute little thought to picture, seeing her hunched over a book sitting in a circle with a bunch of other navigators. What? With the rest of the personal navigators? If they still had their limitation chips, then good luck. I mean, stories like that, they affect people differently. I guess they'd be part of the fun getting people to sit down and talk about it. Guess it's all online now. Still, it's a fun thought. Thinking of a bunch of strangers scattered across planets discussing. Oh gosh, I skipped, my bad. Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun, I'm sure. She nodded, that dreamy look drifting in her widened eyes. Pick out a favorite. Pick out any favorites yet? Not exactly a bookworm myself, but. Oh, I think I've got one in mind. I was really sucked into it. My Antonia by Willa Cather. Cather. I read it. I read it. Was considered a classic. Never heard of it. A knee-jerk reaction unlike any other. I'm not exactly an archaeologist here. I was. It was written in the United States, the first one on old Earth. It was. It's a fictional work, but it's rooted in the history of the sweeping American Northwest. As I am to understand, it was really rural, lots of farmland, lots of outdoors work that had to be done by hand in the harsh sunlight. It was exhausting, stressful work, and then sickness hit. It hit hard. It was dreadful. No kidding. There was everything being automated. With everything being automated these days, everything's a lot more stress free. Yeah, I felt a little strange about that. And when they gathered as a family and, well, enjoyed supper, the fruit of their labor, it felt it was doubly meaningful. It was a wonderful feeling. I wouldn't want to take that away from anyone. She was surprisingly empathetic now. Her emotive eyes drifted to the display in front of her. Sounds like you got a lot out of this. You said it was fiction, yeah? Historical fiction, yes. Actually, it was on the form of a memoir from the perspective of a lawyer reflecting on his childhood. And it also brought up his relationship with an immigrant, immigrant girl living next door. The titular, titular Antonia, you see. Oh, it's one of those stories, huh? Suits you to be a dreamy little romantic. How'd they hook up? What? No, it's nothing like that. There was no hooking up. Actually, she ended up marrying somebody else. What? Okay, I'll have to find out if that book is actually real. And I resent that, Mark. I'm plenty grounded in reality, thank you very much. Getting a little worked up over a bunch of fictional characters, aren't you? Well, I was a little sad they didn't get together in the end, but that's besides the point. I think that proves the point entirely. Hmm. Well, there's a point in my favor. Seeing her get pouty like that is like this is its own reward. So, do they so what do they do then? Do they just walk away from each other, never seeing each other again? Most sappy romances seem to end on that note. That's the thing. The protagonist had come from a higher up background and she had the opportunity to study, to join a university and pursue her career in law. And Antonia was a poor immigrant girl working a farm. She was rooted to her working condition, but for the most part, and so they ended up drifting apart in adulthood. That's the way things are. I didn't think I could make out the faces of the rest of the kids I went to secondary school with. The university is too big to stay stuck in one place. If anything, nothing's changed in that regard. Funny that you mentioned that. When I was reading, it felt like the world was changing too. Or maybe it was just the boy himself who was changing. In the first book, I'd gotten so enamored with how they described the beautiful landscapes and the sweeping fields, and then when they moved into town, it was about business, economics, trade. It was as if the characters were defined by the work they did, and they were all very homesick. I can relate. You can get some bum jobs in this economy, and reminding yourself what you aren't, your job is all what you aren't, your job is about all you can do to get through the day. Passenger sir, if I may, do you ever get homesick? Who, me? The look Budapest gave me was complicated, filled with curiosity and at the same time concern. I mean, to come all the way out here, it's hardly a residential sector and all. And, well, I can't say I've ever felt the feeling. Far as I've ever known, the ship is, well, it's simply where I've always been. On the other hand, you've traveled a lot. Maybe you could explain the feeling? Hmm. I don't know if I could. It's like, I guess home is where you leave a part of yourself. And it's like, no matter how far you go, part of you is always going to be there, waiting for you. It's where you grew up. Yeah, and those memories, they don't ever go away, no matter how much you want them to. That's what I thought, but for whatever reason, I couldn't say it out loud. It didn't seem especially pertinent. Budapest nodded in agreement, regardless. Hmm, it's funny. The ship is part of me, you could say. I don't think I could ever leave it, but that's okay, I think. I mean, I have plenty of recordings. I know a lot of people were happy to fly with me. I can't forget their faces. Literally, they're stored in my quantum memory. She let out a mirthful chuckle. I couldn't help but grin a little in response. I, no, this is kind of like my home in a way. I mean, I've been here as long as I can remember, and I have pretty good memory. I don't think I could leave this behind so easily. I mean, it's a directive, right? It's my directive, right? To be here? Her voice was getting lower. I guess I won't. really understand what feeling myself, that feeling myself, all this reading just got me to thinking about how different from others I really am. Humans. They get to drift from one place to another while I'm rooted here, shackled in functions and code and processors. I guess all people have to move on eventually, but at least I managed to help them along their way, right? So you really want to get out of here? I'm not so sure, honestly. She flashes me a small smile. I like helping people, and I'm able to do that right here. And there's so many photos, stories, and memories in these data banks. At the very least, I can witness the charisma, cherished memories, and the stories of others. As for me, I have plenty of records and recordings and logs, but no real memories to call my own. She clutched her head, rubbing it thoughtfully. I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking things. I don't know. It sounds to me like you want to get out of there, and live a little. Which would be understandably hard, but to get around in your current state, but I don't think it'd be impossible. Ah? I was joking around when I said it earlier, but if they end up deeming you unfit for service once we're rescued, you can travel with me. It's not exactly glamorous, you see. The life I live, there's a lot of sitting and waiting around to get where you want to be, but at the end of the trail, there are incredible sights. Looking at an old photo is not the same at all. And you'd be making memories, your memories, and yours alone. I wasn't exactly sure where I was going with that. It sounded like a nice enough idea as I was saying it, but she was pretty attached to her position as a personal navigator. Budapest simply stared at me for a few silent, awkward moments, and for a second I wondered. Maybe I said something incredibly stupidly forward. I mean, this was just supposed to be a favor. Tense, I rubbed the back of my neck. It, if something like that sounds okay to you, I mean, I wouldn't mind. It sounds like a wonderful idea. Wait, really? Budapest was beaming with joy? I I never exactly got to, well, talk with people this much, but now I guess I really have a few memories to call my own. If it's alright with you, I'll hold them close. You don't really make me ask for permission for anything like that. Don't really need to ask for permission for anything like that. Sorry, force a habit, I suppose. I guess that book just got me thinking about how humans hold their pasts close to themselves. They never really forget, and it sticks with them for their whole lives. I mean, you're not gonna forget about our trip, right? She turned to me with a teasing pang in her voice. I shuffled slightly. Hmm, I have no idea how I could. I muttered, then chuckled. Admittedly, I was having two spending my time chatting with Budapest. I was having two spending my time with Budapest, drifting with her through space. Huh? Okay, that sentence, either I'm reading it wrong or it just does not make sense. Accompanying her on our voyage through space, through the ocean of stars. I wonder how long I slept this time. That was the first thought that popped into my head as I parted my eyelids to an expanse of stars that might as well have been the same ones I fell asleep counting. Even with the centuries of entertainment to fill the void, time began to lose coherence. Minutes blended into hours, which melded into days. Such is the fate of man in space, which I suppose is why cryostasis was invented, to quickly pass the long intervals between departure and arrival that could otherwise drive you bonkers. The second thought, the second thought that occurred to me was I stirred awake in my seat was as I stirred awake in my seat was that for an AI Budapest was one hell of a singer. I straightened up in my chair and opened my eyes to see her facing the windshield, her back turned towards me. She was singing an old family melody, one I must have heard dozens of times as kids in movies and cartoons. Her voice gave it a grace that I never knew it could have. Beautiful dreamer, wake unto me. Starlight and dewdrops are waiting for thee. Sound of the rude world heard in the day, lulled by the moonlight, have all passed away. Her arms hung by her side as she swayed gently in time with each line and for a moment I forgot she wasn't human. Why would an AI move so gracefully in tune of a song? Why would an AI even why would an AI even sentient one sing for that matter? Was it some sort of lullaby meant for me? I don't know long I don't know long I was out. How long I was out? The way they wrote this is weird. But she couldn't have sung me to sleep. My periods of sleep and wakefulness might have been starting to blend together into one indistinct blur, but there's no way I could have forgotten a voice so genuine, so sweet. Awake unto me, beautiful dreamer, awake unto me, wake unto me. Then again, maybe the point was to wake me up. She seemed unaware that her song had gained an audience, but perhaps she wasn't. I had never paused to consider how lonely Budapest must have been when I slept. When I've considered she has had someone to share her feelings with, someone to relate her excitement to. Oh gosh, dang it. But for the duration of my slumbers, she's been left alone with no one to share these few experiences with. Whether she had intended to wake me or not, I decided that I do any wouldn't do or say anything that might interrupt her singing. And so, hoping not to draw her attention, I sat perfectly still Doing so was easy, as with every new verse I found myself captivated by her performance, entranced by her flowing red hair and dress as they swayed with her body to the music. Just a hologram gazing into the depths of space, singing with more emotional sincerity than any human being I've ever heard. She turned around mid-verse, so I quickly leaned back in my seat and pretended I was asleep, leaving my eyes open just enough to see the beaming smile on her face. She was particularly glowing. Beautiful dreamer, beam on my heart. And as the morn on streamlet and sea, then will all clouds of sorrow depart. Beautiful dreamer, wake unto me. She finished her performance with a content sigh and opened her eyes. As she did, I rose to give her a standing ovation. Ah, passenger sir, you are awake! Her face blushed crimson red, with which elicited a chuckle from me. Why, is that a problem? I can go back to sleep if you'd like. Oh, no, no, please don't. I was just surprised to learn that you had been listening. Why? Would you have actually put some effort into it if you knew I had been? Hmm? She placed her hands on her hips and pouted. And what is that supposed to mean? I'm kidding, I'm kidding. That was beautiful. Budapest. There's a serenity in your voice that's well suited for music. Really? I quickly nodded. You ought to sing more often. She was apparently caught off guard by these sudden compliments. That endearing blush of hers made a return showing accompanied by a huge smile. Thank you, sir. Truthfully, that was really the first song I'd ever sung. Really? So what made you want to give it a shot? Were you digging through old Earth music on the database? She responded with an enthusiastic nod. Yes, especially compositions from the 19th and 20th centuries AD. Human species had unpre- unprecedented bursts of musical creativity in their later years on Earth. But that 200-year epoch is widely considered to be musicologists to be the peak period by musicologists to be the peak period of humankind's artis, artistry. Gosh, I can't speak still. The song you just heard is titled Beautiful Dreamer and was written in 1826 by. I smiled and nodded politely as she babbled excitedly about the history of the song, its composer, and of that era in music history. Though I didn't share her passion for old Earth history, it was hard not to be won over by her high spirit, spirited, spiritedness. Gosh, I think I could listen to that era's music all night and not grow bored. All night? Were you in the middle of no? We're out in the middle of nowhere. Space, perhaps, light years from the nearest sun. How does she have a concept of night? Well, I suppose you won't be needing my company then. With a teasing look, I settled back into the co-pilot seat and closed my eyes. Wait, what? Well, You do have the centuries of music to listen to, don't you? Wake me up when you grow bored, which, at the rate that you've been digesting information, should be in a couple of decades or so. I cracked open an eye to catch Budapest pouting angrily at me. You're not very funny, sir. Oh, I'm not, am I? She shook her head empathetically. I do get bored when you're asleep, or to be more accurate, I. She paused and struggled with the next word. Never mind. It's nothing important. Protecting you is my primary directive. That's all I need to worry about myself, too. Do you think that's fair enough? She cocked her head to the side. What do you mean? What I mean is, do you think it's fair that my needs must always come before your own? The question seemed to perplex her. But, sir, I was programmed to serve humanity. Serving you is my need. Titan spent years developing the deep code that enables us AIs to. No, no, you still don't understand. I know what you were programmed to do, Budapest, but how do you feel about it? She bit her lower lip, glancing down at the floor as she thought this over. I I don't know, sir. No one's ever asked before. Naturally, until recently there was never any feelings to be inquired about. Then let's look at this from another angle. Why shouldn't you ever think of yourself? But you're a human, and I'm. Do you really think that being made of flesh and bone makes me any more of a person than you? What is going on with my phone? Hang on. Nothing I need to worry about. She seemed surprised, saddened, and even frightened by this line of questioning, but ultimately she was confused. Clearly, no one had ever put her on their own level before, and and now that someone had, she didn't know how to feel, how to react. At that moment, I would have given anything in the world to have been able to hug her or to even just place a comforting hand on her shoulder, but I couldn't, so I'd have to make do with a smile. All I'm saying is, if you want me to stay up with you a little longer, all you have to do is ask. She looked up from the floor, her sapphire eyes meeting mine in a hopeful gaze. She held them there for some time, staring deep into my eyes as though to ascertain my motives. The notion that I would have been making fun of her, if indeed she considered it, was hurtful, but I can't say I'd have blamed her for doubting me. I've done worse things than give false hope to a hologram. Would you please keep me company a little longer, sir? Of course. It would be my pleasure. Okay, I think I'm going to actually end this stream here. Yep. I will catch the rest of you in the next one. Till then, have a good day and good night. And for those of you who left a lurk, I'm sorry I didn't say this before. Thank you for the lurk. And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.